In 1967, the authorities realized that our role as territorial artillery regiments within the Malta Territorial Force, with our obsolete equipment of light attack both as L-70s and 3.7 heavy attack guns, had become untenable. A decision was taken to change the function of both 3rd Light Attack Regiment and 11th Heavy Attack Regiment. I would tend to think that the incoming use of guided missiles for air defense was probably one of the reasons behind this. Both regiments' 3 batteries were redeployed into 3 separate and different roles. In the case of my regiment, 3rd Light Attack Regiment, 15 Battery was to become an infantry company. The 22 Battery was given a civil defense role, and 30 Battery would retain its artillery role. As one can imagine, 15 Battery's change of role to infantry was an upheaval of quite big proportions and required complete retraining. We had to start from scratch. Paddy Beacom, who was appointed to command the new company, Charles Sahila and George Kissin were sent off to the infantry training school at Warminster to be initiated into the dubious delights of becoming foot soldiers. George Pegbalzan, Joe Binello, who unfortunately have both passed away, Joe Wismayer, Frank Meetsey, James Miller, and the writer of this narrative were transferred from our previous duties in the regiment into the new infantry company. Further to the training received by Paddy, Charles and George at Warminster, all the officers were given additional infantry training by the Duke of Edinburgh Royal Regiment, who were stationed at the time at St. Patrick's Barracks. One has to understand that the 5 of us who did not go to Warminster had absolutely no inkling of what all this was about. The Duke of Edinburgh Royal Regiment started by forming us into a section, the most basic of infantry formations, 8 men in all. The arms we carried were the good old .303 Lee Enfield and a Bren gun. Training was carried out together with a similar unit from 11 Regiment during weekend camps on my Saraj and Antu Fiha ranges. This was a thing to die for, and I mean it literally. It was physically hard and I was surprised how we all survived. The training was carried out in high summer on Mujjessa Ridge, starting from Mister, and finishing at Upper Antu Fiha Camp, a good 2 miles of rugged terrain, ideal for this sort of escapade. Suffice it to say that I used to return home with my web belt soaked with sweat, this having penetrated a vest, Il Famouse Angora shirt, denim trousers and the belt itself. The belt was so wet that the blow had returned to its muddy state. Nonetheless, it was a completely new experience and most of us thoroughly enjoyed it. Eventually we passed this new experience on to the men in 15 Battery. I remember one event of note, which is worth telling. This was an exercise to Gozo. It took place during a weekend camp held at Lower Elmo. Early afternoon, we set off, fully armed and kitted out, but no live ammunition, in a convoy of 3-tonners to Chirkuwa. On our arrival, we embarked onto personnel landing craft, which was supposed to sail round to Ramla El Hamra, where we were to disembark. This was the plan, but Mother Nature had other ideas. The sea was too rough for the much anticipated landing. And we certainly did not want to lose some hapless infantryman to its vagaries. So a decision was taken to cross over to Mjar, and we landed next to the Gozo ferries. When night fell, we set off to reach our objective, the Tar Jordan Lighthouse. This is situated on a ridge in the north of the island overlooking the tiny village of Azri in an area called Tar Jordan. Constructed in 1851 during the British period, the lighthouse was built to monitor and assist maritime traffic in the region. This was the first real route march for the company. The distance involved is about 12 kilometers and we passed through a couple of villages on the way. As it was very late at night, the streets were deserted, but we could sense that we were causing a commotion and a lot of curious goatin eyes were peeping out from behind the louvered windows. We arrived at Tar Jordan without incident just before daybreak. The attack was carried out at dawn, thunder flashes being our main firepower, and of course, the objective was taken easily. Considering that the lighthouse was undefended, this was a foregone conclusion. Happy with our achievement, we marched back to Imjar, and made straight for the alfresco kitchen set up by our cooking staff, on the slopes below Fort Chambray. The menu was bangers, mash, baked beans and tea. After downing camp, we boarded the PLCs and sailed back to Chirkua, where we found the trucks waiting, all set to return to St. Elmo. So ended a unique experience, and as far as I am aware, there wasn't a next time. These events happened more than 40 years ago, and memories unfortunately fade, so any comments would be much appreciated. The 25th of June 2012.